It's strange the way certain memories fade around the edges, but one night can stay perfectly preserved. I'm 31 now. I've moved cities, changed jobs, been through breakups and funerals and all the normal things that are supposed to shape you, but nothing sits in my mind the way one night from when I was 16 does. I don't think about it every day. It's not like that. It's more that sometimes, when a house is too quiet, or I hear a kid say they're scared of something in their room, my chest tightens in a way I can't control. It was the first time I ever realized how thin the line is between normal and something you never fully get over. I was 16 and babysitting for a family that lived 2 streets over from us. My parents had known them for years. We'd been to their barbecues. Their daughter Lily was 7. I'd watched her grow up in that casual, neighborhood way where you don't think much of it. Her parents, Greg and Melissa, were the kind of people you automatically trust. Greg worked in finance somewhere downtown. Melissa volunteered at the elementary school. Their house looked like every other house on the block. 2 stories, pale siding, trimmed hedges, a basketball hoop over the garage. The kind of place where nothing dramatic ever seems like it could happen. It was a Saturday in early spring. It's still light out when my mom dropped me off around 5:45. Greg was already buttoned down, adjusting his watch. Melissa was touching up her makeup in the hallway mirror. They went over the usual stuff in the kitchen. Dinner was already prepped. Just heat up the baked ziti in the oven at 6:30. Lily could have 1 juice box, not 2. Bedtime was 8:30, maybe 9 if she wasn't cranky. They showed me where the flashlights were, just in case, and reminded me that Lily sometimes got nervous about shadows in her room. Greg walked me to the back door before they left. "Make sure you lock both," he said, pointing. There was the regular handle lock, and then a deadbolt above it. "We don't usually use the front door," he added. "Garage is the main way in and out, but just check them anyway before you settle in." I nodded, feeling responsible and grown up. They left around 6. I remember standing in the kitchen for a second after the garage door shut, just listening to the house settle into that quiet that only happens when adults leave. Lily immediately asked if we could play hide and seek. I said no to that pretty quickly. The house wasn't huge, but it had enough closets and tucked away spaces that I didn't want to deal with her squeezing somewhere weird and getting stuck. We compromised with a board game at the dining room table, then a few rounds of Mario Kart in the living room. She was an easy kid, talkative, funny in that blunt way kids are. Dinner went smoothly. We ate at the coffee table even though I suspected that wasn't normally allowed. I didn't think it would hurt for one night. At 8:15, I told her it was time to brush her teeth. Her bedroom was upstairs at the end of a narrow hallway. The stairs came up to a small landing. To the left was a bathroom, straight ahead was a linen closet, and to the right, the hallway stretched about 20 feet with 2 bedrooms along the left wall and Lily's at the very end on the right. Her door opened inward, toward a tall white dresser that sat against the left wall. Across from the dresser was her bed, pushed into the far right corner under a window. The closet was along the back wall, sliding doors, one slightly off its track so it always made a soft scraping noise when opened. There was a small nightlight plugged in beside her bed that cast a dull yellow glow across the carpet. I remember all of that clearly because I've replayed it in my head so many times. We read one chapter from a book she liked. I tucked her in, turned off the main light, and left the nightlight on. Her door stayed cracked, just like her mom preferred. I went downstairs, did what every 16-year-old babysitter does, and flipped on the TV. I checked my phone. I remember thinking how easy the night was going. About 40 minutes later, I heard her soft footsteps on the stairs. She stood halfway down, clutching the railing. "I heard something," she said. I muted the TV. "Like what?" "In my closet." Her voice wasn't dramatic, just uneasy. I smiled in the way you do when you're trying to be reassuring. "Houses make noises. Pipes, air vents. It's old." She shook her head. It was scratching. That made me pause for half a second, but I pushed it aside. "I'll check," I said. We walked back upstairs together. I turned on her bedroom light and slid open the closet door. It made that familiar scrape. Inside were rows of small jackets and dresses, a plastic bin of stuffed animals on the floor, and a stack of board games on the top shelf. Nothing else. I pushed a few hangers aside to make it look thorough. "See?" I said. She looked embarrassed more than anything. I tucked her back in and told her to try to sleep. Back downstairs, I double-checked the back door out of habit. Both locks were in place. I distinctly remember turning the deadbolt and feeling it resist slightly before clicking into place. That detail matters to me now. 10 or 15 minutes later, I heard her again. This time, she didn't walk down the stairs. She called my name, not loudly, but sharp. I went up faster. Her bedroom door was wider than I'd left it. She was sitting upright in bed, blanket clutched in her fists. "The door moved," she whispered. I glanced at the closet. One of the sliding doors was open about a foot. I stopped in the doorway. I knew I had shut it. I remember sliding it closed and hearing that scrape. "Did you open it?" I asked. She shook her head so hard her hair moved. I walked over and slid it shut again. It didn't glide easily. It took a little push. My stomach did that small drop, but I told myself the track was uneven. Maybe it slipped. "You're okay," I said, softer this time. I stayed in her room a minute longer before leaving. Back downstairs, I couldn't focus on the TV anymore. Every creak sounded sharper. Then I heard her cry out. Not a scream, more like a quick, choked sound. I was on my feet instantly. When I stepped into her room, she was standing on her bed. She wasn't looking at the closet. She was pointing to the space beside her dresser. It took my brain a second to understand what I was seeing. There was a narrow gap between the dresser and the wall, maybe a foot wide. Something was in that gap. At first, it was just the shape of a shoulder, a dark sleeve pressed flat against the wall. Then I saw a shoe, then a face, partially turned away, crouched low. He was wedged into that space, trying to make himself small. His eyes were open. That's the part one remember most. They weren't wild or frantic. They were steady, watching. The moment couldn't have lasted more than 2 seconds. I didn't scream. I moved. I grabbed Lily under her arms and lifted her off the bed. She was lighter than I expected. I backed toward the door without looking away from that space. He didn't move. That was somehow worse. I ran down the hallway, into the bathroom at the top of the stairs, and locked the door. It was the only room with a lock up there. I set her down and dialed 911 with shaking hands. "There's someone in the house," I said. The operator asked where. "In the bedroom upstairs." "We're locked in the bathroom." She asked if he had a weapon. "I don't know." She told me to stay on the line. Lily was crying silently against my side. I kept expecting the doorknob to rattle. It didn't. We heard movement below us at some point, footsteps on the stairs. Then nothing. The longest 5 minutes of my life passed before sirens cut through the quiet. Police announced themselves downstairs, then upstairs. When I unlocked the bathroom door, 2 officers were there, flashlights raised. They searched the entire house. He was gone. The back door was open. The regular handle lock was still engaged. The deadbolt was not. I stared at it. I was certain I'd turned it. One officer said sometimes if they're not fully set, they don't catch. Maybe I hadn't pushed it hard enough. Maybe I thought I did. Greg and Melissa came home to flashing lights. Melissa ran straight to Lily. Greg asked me what happened, over and over, like the answer might change. When he checked the door and saw the deadbolt, he looked at me. Not angry, just pale. I told him I locked it. I believe that, but belief doesn't change what happened. The police said the man likely slipped out the back when he heard me running. They never caught him. No fingerprints. Nothing taken. Sometimes I think about how long he'd been in that room. If he'd been in the closet when we checked the first time. If he'd been standing behind the door while I tucked her in. I think about what would have happened if she hadn't called me back in. If she'd convinced herself it was nothing and tried to sleep. I don't babysit anymore. And whenever a child says they hear something in their room, I don't tell them it's just their imagination. Because sometimes it isn't. And sometimes the only reason you know that is because you looked. The last time I ever babysat, I was 19 years old and home for my first semester of college. I didn't know it would be the last time when I agreed to it. If I had, I probably wouldn't have gone. But at the time, it just felt like easy money over winter break. I've replayed that night more times than I can count. Not because something unbelievable happened, but because it was so ordinary right up until it wasn't. And sometimes I think that's what bothers me most. I grew up in a small suburban neighborhood where everyone kind of knew each other. I had babysat all through high school, mostly toddlers, sometimes siblings, nothing complicated. Word gets around fast in places like that, so when I came home from college, a neighbor texted asking if I was available to watch her son for a few evenings while she worked late shifts at the hospital. Her name was Danielle. She lived about 4 streets over from my parents in a 2-story beige house that looked like every other house on the block. I vaguely remembered her son, Mason, from years earlier. He was around 10 now. Quiet, skinny brown hair that always seemed like it needed to be brushed. Danielle explained that her husband had moved out a few months ago and she'd recently switched to night shifts. She said Mason was independent and mostly stayed in his room playing on his tablet or Xbox. "You won't even know he's there," she joked. That should have been my first hint that something was off. Kids that age usually want attention. They test boundaries. They hover. The idea that I wouldn't even notice him felt strange. But I shrugged it off. Some kids are just introverted. The first 2 nights were uneventful. Mason barely spoke. He'd answer questions with one-word responses and avoid eye contact. But I've watched shy kids before. He ate dinner quietly and disappeared upstairs afterward. Danielle always texted around 9:30, asking if everything was okay. I'd reply yes, and that was that. The third night was when she asked if I could stay later than usual. Her shift had been extended unexpectedly, and she wouldn't be home until close to 2 a.m. I hesitated, but she sounded exhausted. I told her it was fine. When I got there that evening, Mason was already upstairs in his room. Danielle was rushing around the kitchen, packing a lunch for her shift and apologizing for the late hours. She mentioned, almost casually, that Mason sometimes wanders at night. "He sleepwalks?" I asked. "Not exactly," she said, then quickly added, "He just gets up sometimes. If you hear him, just tell him to go back to bed." She didn't elaborate. I didn't push. After she left, the house felt different than it had before. Quieter. The heating kicked on with a low hum that seemed louder than usual. The living room lamp cast long shadows across the hallway that led to the stairs. I called up to Mason to let him know dinner was ready. He came down slowly, stopping halfway down the staircase and just standing there for a second. He was looking at me, but not really at me. His eyes felt distant. "Your mom said you like mac and cheese," I said, trying to sound upbeat. He nodded once and came the rest of the way down. He ate without speaking, staring at the table more than his plate. A couple of times I caught him glancing up at me quickly, then looking away as soon as I noticed. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah," he said. Flat. No expression. After dinner, he went back upstairs. Around 10:30, I heard what sounded like slow footsteps in the hallway above me. I assumed he was getting water or using the bathroom. The steps were deliberate, though. Not groggy. Not half asleep. They stopped directly above where I was sitting. I looked up at the ceiling without meaning to. I don't know what I expected to see. A few minutes later, the steps resumed and then his bedroom door creaked shut. I told myself it was nothing. Around midnight, I turned off the TV and went upstairs to use the bathroom. The hallway light was off, even though I was almost certain I'd left it on earlier. The only illumination came from the small nightlight near the stairs. As I walked past Mason's room, I noticed his door was slightly open. I could see part of his bed through the crack. It looked empty. I slowed down. Maybe he was in the bathroom already, but the bathroom door was wide open and dark. That's when I felt it, that heavy awareness that someone might be behind you. I turned around slowly. Mason was standing at the end of the hallway near the top of the stairs. He wasn't moving. He wasn't blinking, just standing there. "You scared me," I said, forcing a small laugh. "Couldn't sleep?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, very quietly, "You shouldn't walk around at night." The way he said it didn't sound like concern. It sounded like a warning. "I was just going to the bathroom," I replied. He stared at me for another few seconds, then walked back into his room without another word. I stood there longer than I wanted to admit, listening to his door close. I checked the bathroom, splashed water on my face, and told myself he was just a weird kid going through a weird phase. At around 1:15 a.m., I lay down on the couch downstairs instead of the guest room. I don't know why. Something about being upstairs felt wrong after that hallway moment. The house was silent except for the ticking of the kitchen clock. I must have dozed off, because the next thing I remember is waking up to the feeling of being watched. My eyes opened slowly. At first, I thought I was still dreaming. There was a shape near the doorway to the living room, too tall to be furniture, too still to be a trick of light. My heart started pounding before my brain caught up. "Mason?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The figure stepped forward just enough for the dim light from the kitchen to hit his face. He was holding something at his side. I pushed myself up on one elbow, my mouth suddenly dry. "What are you doing?" I asked. He didn't respond. He just stood there, staring at me, not angry, not scared, just blank. Then, he slowly brought his hand forward. It was a hammer, one of those heavy metal ones with a thick black handle. My entire body went cold. "Mason," I said carefully, my voice shaking despite my effort to control it. "Why do you have that?" He shrugged. My pulse was so loud in my ears, I could barely hear anything else. I sat up fully now, keeping my eyes locked on him. "You need to put that down," I said. "You could hurt someone." Another shrug. He took one step closer. That was enough. I scrambled off the couch and backed toward the kitchen, keeping the island between us. My hands were trembling so badly, I had to grip the counter to steady myself. "Mason, stop," I said. "Go back to your room." For a split second, something flickered across his face. Not confusion, not anger, almost curiosity. Then, without a word, he turned around and walked back down the hallway toward the stairs. He didn't run, didn't rush, just walked. I stood frozen until I heard his bedroom door close upstairs. Then I grabbed my phone and called Danielle. She answered on the second ring, breathless. "Is everything okay?" "No," I said immediately. "Mason just came downstairs with a hammer." There was silence. Not confusion, not disbelief, just silence. Finally, she exhaled sharply. "Did he say anything?" I told her exactly what happened. She didn't question me, didn't suggest I misunderstood. "I'm coming home," she said. Her voice sounded tight, controlled. "Stay downstairs. Lock yourself in the bathroom if you need to." That response scared me more than anything. She arrived about 20 minutes later. Those 20 minutes felt like hours. I stayed in the kitchen with every light on, listening for footsteps. When Danielle walked in, she looked pale. She went upstairs without saying much to me. I heard muffled talking. Then his door shut again. When she came back down, she didn't make excuses. She didn't downplay it. "I'm so sorry," she said. "He's been having some issues." I didn't ask what kind of issues. I grabbed my coat and bag. My legs still felt weak as I walked out the front door. She Venmo'd me the money the next morning, with another apology attached. I never responded. A week later, my mom mentioned that Mason had been enrolled in some kind of inpatient program out of state. She didn't know the details. I don't know what he intended to do that night. Maybe nothing. Maybe he was just curious what would happen if he stood there long enough. But I do know that if I hadn't woken up when I did, things could have gone very differently. Sometimes I think about how easily that night could have ended with flashing lights outside that beige house and my name scrolling across a local news station. I never babysat again. And to this day, if I wake up in the middle of the night and see a shadow in a doorway, my heart reacts before my brain can tell it I'm safe. I should have grabbed the kids and run the first time one of them said I was standing in their doorway when I wasn't. That was the moment everything stopped feeling normal, even if I didn't admit it yet. I was 20 at the time, home from college for the summer and trying to pick up extra cash wherever I could. A family down the street from my parents needed a babysitter for the night. I'd known them for years. Their daughter Lily was 7, and her little brother Max was 4. I'd watched them a handful of times before, mostly short evenings while their parents went out to dinner. That night was supposed to be easy. Their parents were going to a birthday party about 40 minutes away and said they'd probably be home by midnight. The house was a typical 2-story place in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Clean kitchen, beige carpet, family photos lining the hallway. Nothing unusual. After they left, the kids and I ordered pizza. Lily insisted on showing me a dance she learned at camp, while Max tried to build a lopsided tower out of couch cushions. We watched a cartoon movie in the living room. I remember thinking how calm it all felt. The kind of babysitting night where you mostly sit and scroll on your phone while they play. Around 8:30, I started their bedtime routine. Pajamas, brushing teeth, one story each. Lily's room was at the end of the hallway upstairs, and Max's was right next door. I tucked Max in first. He was already half asleep, clutching this worn, stuffed dinosaur. Lily asked if I'd leave her door cracked and keep the hallway light on. She didn't like it completely dark. I said, of course. By 9 o'clock, both doors were closed, and I was back downstairs. I turned the TV on low and sat on the couch. The house was quiet in that normal way houses get when kids finally fall asleep. About 20 minutes later, I heard soft footsteps upstairs. I didn't even think twice. Max sometimes got up to ask for water. I muted the TV and waited to hear one of them call my name. Nothing. Then I heard what sounded like a door gently clicking shut. I figured Lily had gone to the bathroom and closed her door afterward. Kids do that kind of thing, absent-mindedly. I unmuted the TV and kept watching. A few minutes later, Lily appeared at the top of the stairs. She was just standing there, holding the railing. "Hey," I said quietly. "What's up?" She looked confused. "Why did you come into my room?" I felt a small flicker of annoyance, like maybe she was trying to stretch bedtime. "I didn't," I told her. "I've been down here the whole time." She shook her head. "You did. You opened my door and stood there." I laughed a little. "I promise, I didn't. You probably thought you heard something." She didn't laugh back. "You didn't say anything," she added. "You just looked at me." Something about the way she said that made me pause. But still, kids dream with their eyes open sometimes. I told her it was probably a half dream and walked her back to her room. I checked the closet and under the bed, more to reassure her than anything. "See?" I said. "Nobody here." She nodded, but she kept watching me carefully as I left. I went downstairs again, telling myself not to be dramatic. 10 minutes later, I heard quick footsteps, this time heavier. Max came down the stairs rubbing his eyes. "Why are you mad?" he asked. "I'm not mad," I said. "Why?" "You were in my room and you didn't talk to me." My stomach tightened. "I haven't been upstairs," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He frowned. "You were by my dresser." That made the back of my neck feel cold. Now, it wasn't just one kid mixing up a dream. It was both of them, describing similar things. Me standing in their doorways, not speaking. I told Max he must have been sleepy and dreaming. I guided him back upstairs. This time, I turned on the hallway light brighter than before. When I came back down, I didn't turn the TV back on right away. I just listened. The house felt different, quieter than it should have been, like it was holding its breath. I became aware of every little sound, the refrigerator humming, the air vent kicking on, the faint ticking of the kitchen clock. Then I heard it again, a slow step, not quick like a kid running, deliberate. Right above me, I stood up. "Lily?" I called softly. No answer. I told myself old houses will settle, floors creak. But this wasn't a creak. It was weight shifting. I walked to the bottom of the stairs and looked up. The hallway light was still on. Both bedroom doors were closed. My heart was beating harder now, not racing, but heavier. I started up the stairs. Each step felt louder than it should have. Halfway up, I thought I heard a faint whisper. I froze. It stopped. "Hello?" I said quietly. No response. I reached the top and turned toward Lily's room first. Her door was slightly more open than I'd left it. I nudged it wider. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. The room was dim, except for the hallway light spilling in. Lily was in bed, facing the wall, and someone was standing near her closet, tall, very still. For a split second, my brain refused to process it. Then, the figure shifted. He stepped slightly into the light. He was a man, mid-30s maybe, thin, too thin. He was wearing dark jeans and a gray hoodie. His face looked drawn, like he hadn't slept in days. He tilted his head at me. In a soft, almost playful voice, he said, "They're such good sleepers." I couldn't move. I remember noticing stupid details, how his shoes were dirty, how one of his sleeves was frayed. My body felt disconnected. My hand actually started to tremble. Then, Lily shifted in her bed. That snapped something in me. I backed out of the room slowly, not breaking eye contact, then turned and ran. I didn't even try to be quiet. I rushed into Max's room, scooped him up out of bed, and yelled Lily's name. She came running into the hallway, confused and scared. "Shoes," she started to say. "Forget them," I told her. "We're leaving, now." I grabbed both of their hands and bolted down the stairs. Halfway down, I heard movement above us, fast. I didn't look back. We ran out the front door barefoot. I didn't even think about locking it. The night air hit us, and Lily started crying. The house 2 doors down had lights on. I dragged the kids across the lawn and pounded on the door. A man answered. I recognized him as one of the neighbors. "There's someone in the house," I blurted out. "Call 911. He didn't hesitate. He ushered us inside while his wife dialed. I stood near their front window, shaking, watching the house. After maybe 2 minutes, the front door of the kids' house opened. The man stepped out. He didn't run. He walked down the driveway calmly, hands in his pockets, like he lived there. I felt this surge of anger I can't really describe. I wanted to chase him. I wanted to scream. Instead, I stayed put because the 911 operator told us not to approach him. He disappeared around the corner before police arrived. It felt like forever before the first cruiser pulled up. They searched the house, checked doors and windows. One of the back windows had been forced open, probably earlier that day. They didn't find him. I drove the kids to my parents' house afterward because theirs was being processed. Lily clung to me the whole ride. Max fell asleep in the back seat like nothing had happened. Their parents were shaken but oddly quiet toward me. I could tell they were trying not to think about how long he might have been inside before I even arrived. For weeks after, I replayed that moment in the doorway. The way he looked at me, the calm in his voice. The family installed security cameras everywhere. Motion lights, window sensors. They don't leave blinds open at night anymore. I stopped babysitting after that. The worst part isn't what he said. It's knowing that if the kids hadn't thought I was the one standing in their rooms, I might never have gone upstairs at all.